everybody. You are listening to I'm Over It. My name is Atlanta DeCadenet Taylor, and this is my podcast. Okay, hi there, everybody. I am here with Miss Alexis Williams. Alexis is a student at NYU. She is a Code with Clossy scholar, and also recently created the incredible website pvresources, which is originally how I found you. And you were working with Microsoft too. And you're how old?
I'm 19.
That's amazing. That's quite a major roster for 19. Yeah. It is. So first of all, and I was just telling you this, that when I saw your TikTok going around, your really cute TikTok going around, kind of doing your dances to the PB resources, I was like, wow, that's so cool seeing like a young girl, woman of color, talking about technology and programming and all of these things. And that's not something you see often. Obviously, when it comes to technology, you think like either really whack, like corny, rich white men, or like slobby white men. Basically, like only white men though. It's not like there's no, it's either like Elon Musk or it's like, the guy who's living with his parents like his whole life kind of thing. So how did you get into computer science?
Okay. It's actually a really long story, and I feel like I have a bit of a unique one because I never really had a moment where I was like, I'm in tech now. I've always kind of been involved in STEM my entire life. So when I was in fifth grade, I joined this pre-college program, as fifth graders do, that my mom had me sign up for, and it was basically an all-girl engineering camp. And every year they had a different kind of engineering that they would show young women at this camp. And my first year was aeronautical engineering, but I kind of kept at it and kept going. And one year in school, we had an app design class that I signed up for, not even thinking that STEM was even a world that was dominated by any particular group of people, because I had been doing this engineering program basically since I was really young with minority women. So I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to take this app design class. And I took the class, and it was definitely, you could see the difference. There were like 3 girls in it. I go to a predominantly white district, so everyone was white, of course, anyway. But I was like definitely shocked. But I continued with doing this pre-college engineering program, and then one year we had software engineering, the year that I started high school. And I went in and I had so much fun, and I did the coolest things I didn't even think I could do. And I ended up coding in Arduino, which is like kind of robotics, some prosthetic fingers that I just made out of like wooden planks and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in love. So after that, I did Girls Who Code and Code with Classy, so more female engineering spaces. And I was like, this is just definitely what I have to do. I did the AP courses in my school. And then by the time I applied for college, I was like, I'm going for computer science. So that's what I applied for.
That's so cool and the opposite of I'm like, I can literally hardly use Zoom. Like, no joke. It's not even like cute or funny at this point, like it used to be kind of like ironic, and I'd be like, I can't use computers, and now it's just like horrible. So you just like, first of all, what does STEM stand for? Just in case anyone doesn't know, aka like asking for a friend. I mean, I did look it up, like I know, but like asking for a friend.
No, a lot of people ask, and a lot of people don't know. It's science, technology, engineering, and math. And then sometimes people say STEAM to include art in there because that's also really important.
So is that specifically like art when it comes to science, or just in general? Oh, interesting.
So it's just like the creative aspect. Like anything you engineer is going to have like a creative aspect, I think. And that's just making sure that it's inclusive of that.
Mm-hmm. I read some of your Medium posts, And, you know, there was the one that you were talking about, kind of how teachers responded to you, and how when you know, you had these really good grades, but, you know, these teachers were still kind of bringing you down and not being like, yeah, you should go for this. And obviously in the story you just told, it's very like, you know, it seems like ABCD, you know, one step after the next kind of thing. But I mean, I would imagine, or was it a challenge to get to where you are now? I mean, you know, was it easy? Like, you know, because obviously, as we just said, you weren't the, you know, the most of the people didn't look like you, or weren't a woman in general, like, let alone like a woman of color. So was it challenging?
I think I definitely like the confidence that I have now in myself, especially in the past few weeks, makes it really, really easy to like look back and be like, oh yeah, I did it. But it was challenging. It was like something that was always a little bit sort of difficult. And it also just did depend on the kind of environment that I was in. So I did do a lot of coding in all female spaces, and that's always so positive and so kind of just reassuring and helpful. But I did have a little bit of a moment where I was struggling, especially in school, because I I was always the kind of person that felt as though if I was ahead of the ball game, or if I was ahead of the track, I wanted to jump to the place that I felt like I was supposed to be. So a good example of that is when I went to school and I wanted to start taking the computer science classes at school so I could have that, you know, on my record for college. Um, but I was like, oh, I don't want to do like the intro courses that are required as a prereq.
Classic.
I already I did it already. Like I already know. And so I went to this teacher because you can kind of like waive out of the prerequisites if you go get permission from your teacher. And then I went to my teacher and I was like, oh, like I had never had this teacher before, but he was the professor of this class. So I never met him. So I was already really nervous. And this was like my first time going to do computer science at high school. So I had all of this paperwork, all of the curriculum that I had learned. I print everything out. And I'm like, I'm walking to this guy's class and I hand it to him and he doesn't even look at it. And he like just like kind of laughs at me and he's like, well, like, and he like brushes it off and I'm like, you didn't even look at the papers. And so I was like crushed that day. And I never like really experienced someone not taking me seriously because I think I was like maybe 16. And that was the first time I was talking to a man about computer science because I'd been doing it in all of these female spaces. And I immediately like, I emailed my counselor and I emailed my mom and I'm like, I'm so upset. And the guy gets back to me and he was like, oh, it was something like, oh, you can skip this class anyway because you're like a year ahead in math or something like that. And then I was like, oh, so I like qualified anyway. You didn't take me seriously, but I'm already ahead. And I was like, that was like one of the moments where I was like, someone else is going to look at me and think X, Y, and Z, but I know my education and my experience will always like speak for me. So that's something that I still think about like to this day. Like I know that people are going to look at me and think some type of way about my coding experience or just my educational experience, but I know when I'm ahead.
Yeah, I get that. So why did you say that you felt more confident in the last 3 weeks? What's changed since then?
I think I think just seeing myself build something that has made such an impact on, and just like seeing the volume of people that have like not only seen it and interacted with something that I built, but also felt compelled enough to reach out to me and say, hey, this is built beautifully, or this tool, I didn't even know that someone could create it and you made it and you have expedited a process that could be so difficult. Like, thank you so much for that. And that just makes me feel better about like the things that I can build and makes me even more ambitious in the future. And I know that I can do it, you know?
Yeah. So do you want to explain what PV resources is? That's what
Um,
you're talking about, I'm assuming, right?
yeah.
Which,
Um,
yeah, I'm going to let you explain.
PV resources is a website that I created kind of in the wake of everything that's happening in this country right now regarding police brutality and kind of white supremacy and overall violence towards the Black community. I think that I was just sitting at home watching what was going on the news. And I feel like everything that happens lately, but especially towards the problems that are happening right now, has felt really isolating just because of the way our world is kind of sanctioned and quarantined right now. It's just
Mhm.
felt like experiencing a lot of things alone. And I especially felt as a young 19-year-old girl just somewhere in New Jersey that there was nothing I could physically do to make this situation better. And I think that was sitting on like my heart in a really heavy way. And every day was just really miserable and I would get up and just feel so frustrated, but also felt like I was tied down and couldn't do anything about it until I like took a second and was like, there is something that you can do about it. And in every space that I've ever learned coding, it's kind of people saying that you can use this tool set to solve literally any problem you can think of. So I was like, I have to use my education and the knowledge that I have to do that. So I really immediately was like, I'm making a resource and education tool because I always have felt as though information is the key to anything. And
Mm.
um, information is something that it's almost a commodity because not everyone has access to it or not everyone is using it. And a lot of the times I found that to be unfair, especially when thinking about like our education system, for example. I don't think that it's fair that some people are privileged enough to get a particular set of resources and other people aren't. So a lot of the work that I do in general is just about access to information. So I kind of took the same path when I was coding PV resources. I had a bunch of my friends come together and just had a huge night just scouring through Twitter and through Instagram, finding a bunch of resources, sending it to myself. And I just took, I think, like 12 or something hours one day and sat down and I was just like, I'm coding this out. So I like wireframed in my brain and plugged stuff in and like created the first iteration and got it up in like probably like 12 hours. And then I've just been building from there.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have to say that I always, well, I've been kind of joking but also serious about the fact that I'm like, I mean, something that I guess, well, what are you, like Gen Y, Gen X or something?
I think I'm Gen Z, I
Gen
think.
Z. Okay, I'm pretty right. Like I'm a millennial, which I guess is like old now. But like we have technology in terms of like, to me, when I started having people send me like those Twitter feeds with like all of the links to like GoFundMe's, emails, this and that, it was incredible. And obviously it was like all over the place and very hard to track and manage. And something that I loved about your website as well, though, is that you included the stories of the people, which I think was really important because it's like seeing the faces, seeing the stories is so important. And that you had included the whole section on, trans lives and how important that is. And, I also saw that you're beginning to get advertising that you're going to donate. Is that what's happening?
Yes, I'm trying to work through the kinks because it is something that's so political and
You
a
know,
difficult sort of space to navigate.
did you
But
say
I've
adult
seen
space?
a lot of examples of people, sorry,
Did you just say it's an adult space?
a difficult space to
Oh,
navigate
difficult space. Yeah, I know.
ads and stuff. But I've seen a few activists do something similar. So I'm hoping to keep trial and erroring. I already got some rejections, which hurts my heart, but I'm trying to power through, and that is something that I think is really important. And I think I'm very inventive. I think that no matter what happens, I'm going to find a way to get that up and running really soon. So hopefully that happens
Yeah.
quickly.
I mean, but I think what you said is true. And that for me, I feel like information and access to information is like so important because, that's even personally why I started the podcast in a way where I was like, wow, I'm having so many conversations with like incredible people, just my friends, you know, like we live in LA or New York or whatever. And so we're able to have these conversations. And like, I'm surrounded by people who are like-minded and politically aware and educated and all of this stuff, right? But there are so many people in the country who aren't. And, you know, that they might follow you on Instagram because they just like your style or whatever it is, right? And then the information that we're talking about or I'm talking about is news to them. And it's like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. You know, it's easy to forget how much information we have, whether it's like an NYU student or, you know, like we have so much information and like so much access. And I think that making that more accessible is like so important and awesome that you're doing that, whether you get ads or not.
100%, yeah.
But I feel you in what you were talking about with like feeling a little more, you know, empowered or confident, because there is something like to be said, of course, of knowing you're being helpful in the world. You know, it's definitely like, I struggle when I'm not able to be helpful in the world, where that's like my biggest thing actually is that, you know, before COVID, I used to do a lot of kind of volunteering and IRL interactions. And since that's stopped, it's actually like really fucked with my confidence in a way. Cause I'm like, so much of what keeps me going is knowing that like, I'm at least being helpful in some way, you know?
Understand that. That's something that, yeah, I can relate to a lot. I feel like I talk about this all the time, but I always like whenever I'm doing something for myself, like a project for myself, it always comes kind of from the perspective of how I can help someone else. So I was actually just realizing how I've never even built something with the idea of like making money, for example, in mind. Like, and that's something that's so not even normal within the tech field and within STEM education even. It's like everything is about efficiency and making money or saving money. And I'm like the opposite. I'm like dishing out money to get things online and stuff. But it's, yeah, pretty crazy.
I mean, I'm totally the same way. I always joke. Like, I mean, people have their ideas about my finances just because I come from a pretty privileged family. But actually, you know, I'm financially dependent and have been since I was 18. And like, I don't take money from my parents. Like, you know, it's whatever. But I always joke that I'm like, okay, well, I have some sense of like self and I can sleep at night, but like, I'm not rolling in it. Like I could have at one point in time, you know, sold out in a different way, but I just couldn't do it. And it's like this world of, you know, capitalism and the efficiency and all of that. It's really hard to maintain integrity in your work and also get paid for it. It's very challenging. I don't know how. I mean, I guess it's like, okay, if you're in school, great, just like keep doing what you're doing until it's like, you know, you're like, oh fuck, I gotta fucking pay my rent and how can I do this best, you know? But I mean, I'm a mush, so obviously like I think that's beautiful. That's my goal too. You know, I love to be of service wherever I can, you know. To me, that's what makes me feel good.
I'm the same way. Like, I hope that I never have to ever work for big tech, and I hope that I can continue to use myself and my skills as like a beacon for others. I just like I like what I'm doing now, and hope to see myself doing the same thing in some fashion in 5 years.
So yeah, what do you study in school exactly? Like what are your like tech goals then? Knowing what I know now and how you want to be like, you know, bettering society in some way or being able to use what you have to help people, which is what I think is the most interesting thing in the world in general. Like for me, everything is about using my privilege in a positive way. Like, I'm very aware of all of my fucking privilege, painfully so, that I'm just like, can I just use everything that I have to please better people who don't? Because otherwise I'm like, what's the point, you know?
Mm-hmm. I I so I study computer science in school. I'm a
Yeah.
computer science. I go to an engineering school, so I'm like getting a very traditional engineering degree right now. And so I'm definitely kind of creating my own path with kind of the mentality that I have, but also since I'm studying computer science, I think there's a really kind of paved way of what a computer science kind of roadmap looks like, and I'm very against it. I'm I'm
What is
I
it?
I think that, well, there's that, like, you go, you have your first year of computer science, you're learning the basics, you've got everything down. Your sophomore year, you have an internship at JP Morgan and you're being an analytics intern or whatever. And then you go, you continue, you make your project, you, if it's really good, you start a startup and you make a lot of money and you sell it and you're rich forever. Or you graduate college and you start working at Google and you make them algorithms and stuff and you're good to go for the rest of your life. I am like trying to avoid having to be like an entrepreneur because I think that right now that the tech industry is taking advantage of a lot of people and keeping and sort of making it an exclusive and classist space. It's very expensive to get in, and I don't think I'd feel good perpetuating that notion with creating another business that makes the barrier to entry even harder. So if I ever were to do something within that space, it would have to be there would have to be such a high percentage that goes to just that is dedicated to just making sure that under people with a less privilege have access. Like there would have to be so much of the company just devoted to making sure that people that normally don't have these resources are getting them.
Yeah.
And then I just don't also want to contribute to working with big tech. Just as far as just like the way racism manifests in capitalism and how I don't think big tech is taking enough of a space to say that this is a problem and we are part of it and we're perpetuating it with the algorithms that we create online and the way that we make the internet harder for a specific group to use. I think that there's not enough responsibility there for me to ever feel like that's appropriate. And I also just want to take up space in a different way. I feel like the skills and the resources that I have and the privilege that I have is better used elsewhere. I want to either work at a nonprofit that is trying to tackle these goals, or I want to use whatever platform I have to continue to speak on this or work with companies towards bridging that gap, whether that be diversity or economically. And I think that that's the space that my skill set is better suited for because I do both understand computer science and algorithms and software, but I also understand what it means to be a woman and a Black woman and a Latina woman within this kind of space, how hard it can be economically, but also just culturally.
Yeah. So is it kind of like, you know, getting into tech is almost like if you start horse riding, like you have to already have so much money to be able to buy your horse. Is it like that kind of thing, you know?
That actually, I made a post about this on Instagram that
Really, to do with horse riding?
I got a little heated. No, it was, well, it was about just like the barrier to entry in technology. But that's
Oh,
like
okay.
the best example that I've ever like heard. It's exactly that. I said something like, for iOS development, for example, like app development, it costs, you have to do it on an Apple device, and it costs like $1,000 to get a Mac. So who out there that is not, how are you kind of affording this opportunity to folks that can't afford a $1,000 Mac? I didn't have a computer to code on for the longest time, and making that work alone was impossible. And the only reason why I'm even half the way near where I am today is one, because I had the privilege to go to the kind of school that I go to, and had access to computers at school. And then I just had so many people that I met in my professional life that literally helped me out with physical like technology. That's the only reason why I'm here today. And I'm just a lucky example of that. But there's so many kids just like me who aren't as lucky.
Yeah, I thought about that when you know, they had to do all the change the schools and do all the schooling through computers and online, and how so many of these kids literally didn't even have computers, and some didn't even have Wi-Fi, you know, and it's like they had to remove, you know, physical learning, but then depending on, you know, what, doing it online and stuff, it's like basic things that you'd think, oh, everyone has a computer or Wi-Fi, you know, and it's not. Do you think that like some big tech company should just like start like a, you know, a nonprofit section to just like give young kids the technology to be able to grow from there? I'm like, that would be a great idea.
I think that that's like a really amazing idea, and a lot of tech companies do have like this nonprofit section of them, but it's about reforming that, and really targeting the group. If you're trying to target a group, make sure that they have the resources to get that information of where to get that laptop or where to get that Wi-Fi. Like you can't just say, oh, I'm allotting $100 million to do X, Y, and Z, but then not give out that information of how people can reach that. I think that that is also half the battle. And that is also when they start coming to Black organizers or organizers of color or young organizers and say, hey, how can we work with you to kind of further this cause, to make sure that a particular demographic of people that have been routinely kind of excluded from this sector of kind of engineering or creating, and how do we get them the resources in a way that's smart and feasible.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My brother is like a huge, well, no, he's a big gamer
Yeah.
and kind of low key, like a pretty good hacker. And it's like, the more we've been talking to him about it, like, you know, at first it was this thing of like, oh, you're spending so much time on screens, right? Then we kind of realized, we're like, okay, you know what? Like, this kid is actually like, he's 13 and like, he's really fucking smart, and he knows, like, you know, he can do like crazy stuff online. And so he's recently kind of, we've been more encouraging of it. And so then it's kind of like, you know, finding these ways. Like this one tech guy who came to the house was like, I'd love to mentor your son. Like, you know, he's as knowledgeable as I am, and I'm 30 years old, you know. And it's like, do you find that there's a connection between tech and like video games now and stuff like that? Because I'm wondering, so many kids, you know, it's almost like a gateway drug.
Right. hmm I think
Do you
100%.
play video
Like
games?
I, I, it depends. I don't, I wouldn't say that the games that I play would qualify me as like a gamer, but I could, I could do some like Halo.
Okay, you're not like in Fortnite.
No, oh no. So I'm not a certified gamer. I do have a gaming PC, so that puts me to shame. But I think that that's like a really, really actually an important part of computer science and coding. I'm not sure if I know maybe a large number of people that are in coding now, or that are my age at least, that didn't start with like games. I started with designing games, I think, all throughout high school. um, the only thing I ever did was design games because I like would finish the project so early that I'm like, oh, I'm making a game or whatever. And games are so fun, and I think one of the most important ways to especially get like young kids into computer science, you're not going to be like, sit down and code the Fibonacci sequence or whatever. You're gonna be like me.
100%.
So yeah,
That's that. How, so like, how would you, okay, say they were like, okay, Alexis, we're, some big tech company comes to you and they're like, Alexis, we want to give you this funding to help us develop and seek out these kids who, you know, we want to be able to help move forward. would you be like, how do you find the kids who, would it just be like everyone gets this computer and this tech or this or that, or do you find kids who you know are just kind of good with technology, or like how would that go? Because it's not like you could really, the thing is I'm noticing is like you can't just look at their fucking report card.
Right,
You
exactly.
know, it's a different thing. Like it's not, you know.
Hmm. I think it's a twofold situation. I think that it's very easy, actually, and pretty clear how to find um, these kids that have been involved for however long in these programs that foster STEM education and software engineering education. That they go and they do these programs, and then after these programs, they're like, I don't have any tech of my own, so basically everything I've been working on stops here. I think it's about finding those kids as part of the program, uh, and funding them and their dreams and the things that they want to build and create. Because I was definitely one of those kids. I would go to all of my engineering programs and I'm like, Mom, I just coded these prosthetic fingers, but that's it because I don't have a computer. And it's about helping those kids, but it's also about creating environments, helping underfunded schools especially create environments that passion and kind of that enthusiasm about STEM and software engineering is born. Because while it is about continuing STEM education for those who are interested but don't have the resources to do it at home and by themselves, it's also about showing kids that have never even dreamed that they could do something like that, that it's a possibility for them. So I think it's a twofold issue, and it's something that if any of those tech guys would just walk out of their little bubbles and go to some of these schools and meet some of these kids that have both done these engineering programs, but also just kids that are just so creative and so passionate about building. And it doesn't even have to be technology, but people that have shown that their enthusiasm about just creating and listening to their stories and realizing that they're valuable enough to invest in, I think is just something that's important.
Yeah. Have you begun having conversations with any companies? Do you find that like has that begun yet? Or are you kind of like,
We're getting there. We're
yeah,
getting there.
great.
Well, we'll see what happens. But I'm it's something that I'm really passionate about because I just feel like it was down to luck that I got to the places that I am. I had the grades, I had the passion, I had the drive and the resilience, but it's about having, at the end of the day, you have to have the tools.
Yeah.
If you're given the tools, it doesn't matter sometimes how passionate or how smart you are or how creative you are. It's just about lack of resources, which I'm just so passionate about people just listening to that sentiment, because there are so many brilliant kids out there that I know haven't been as lucky as me and have ideas that could revolutionize the world. Like, just imagine if, like, I know like 2 million people saw that video, and like I've had maybe around 300,000 people view my resource and like use it. But imagine I wasn't lucky enough to just get the tools I needed to create it. And I'm just one example of that. So I could only imagine how many people haven't been lucky enough to build all of the amazing and creative resources they've thought of in their minds.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that sentiment very hard. I very regularly ask myself why I'm how, like I didn't, you know, I'm born into this situation. Why am I born into this? And others, you know, I very regularly think about that. I've switched it in. I have to switch it into like a gratitude perspective, and what you're doing of like being like, okay, what can I do? How can I take an action to move this forward? You know, because it's like, okay, I have all of this stuff, and how can I make a difference in taking the action instead of just like thinking about it? Because it is like, if you have that drive, like you do, then you're given that ability to speak. You're given that, you know, you're beautiful, like for is you have certain things that you could go and like have these conversations, you know. And so I think using that is so important and so powerful, and I think it's amazing. So that's really, yeah, it's really great that you've done that. I mean, I think it's just really interesting what you're doing. And so PV Resources, everybody, by the way, like everyone should go and check out that website. Did we explain what it was fully?
Oh, I think a little bit.
Okay, I feel like I actually don't think we did, because I knew what it was.
Okay. I think before I was just saying PV Resources is basically a website that compiles a bunch of information. It has 3 main tabs: educational tools, action tools, and places to donate. And the action tools is one of my favorite sections of the website. You can sign petitions, make calls, send auto-generated emails, and every email is unique. So it's been sneaking around some emails.
Really?
Yes.
But how did you do that? I mean, I won't. Yeah, it's a secret. That's your special sauce. It's your special sauce.
Yeah, it's my little magic sauce. And so that's really fun. There are resources about a particular marginalized communities within the Black community. So how you can know about LGBTQ plus folks, Black trans folks, and Black women. And there are so many places to donate. So if you want to do something that causes tangible action, please donate if you can. But if you can't, of course, there are so many things you can do to educate yourself and educate your peers. The education tab has podcasts to listen to, movies to watch, books to read. So it's really just an endless well of information and tools. So no one has an excuse not to get educated and not to do something to help the cause.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about talking and thinking about how I have to kind of restructure how I've been living my life in terms of trying to change even how I consume, and being like, and how much my life is based around convenience at this point, like buying things now and like whatever. Like I am guilty of spending a lot of money on Amazon, and I've had to really think about how I can change that and how I can, it takes that. I think we're so used to getting things right now when we want it, this and that we have to get uncomfortable, not only emotionally in terms of like looking at ourselves, or me, I'll say, like as a white person, I have to be uncomfortable in this, but I also literally have to be uncomfortable in the fact that I'm like, fuck, going and ordering this book on this other place is going to take me another 10 minutes. I'm going to have to input my credit card information again. I'm going to have to go get my credit card, like it's really just, and even sending emails and stuff. It's like, I signed up for like an organization, and I've been taking kind of like webinars and stuff, mostly about like, it's white people talking to white people about this and like how we can constantly examine our privilege and use it. That's what it is. And they like work in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. But it's definitely like when they message me being like, have you sent these emails? And I'm like, no, like those auto emails are amazing. And I love that you've changed the freaking letters, because that was a big one. But even then I was like, okay, you know what? That's going to be my action today, that I'm going to take these fucking 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes and write these emails. It's just being inconvenienced. And it's so important to change the perspective and way that we think about like consuming and where's my money going. I've never really gone into that realm. So I don't know where I was going with that.
I think that's like a really important thing to think about. And I've been thinking about that too a lot, honestly. I'm a college student and I definitely don't have that much disposable income, but I've been really super conscious recently about just kind of that, knowing in the back of your mind that every decision that you make, especially economically, is something that's going to impact other people. And it's really starting to weigh that impact it has on other people, that is changing the way we have to think about spending. And I think that's like a super important thing to think about, because I can sacrifice a couple things to make sure that I'm supporting causes that I do want to support and not choosing to spend money just because of ease and sometimes just like an inexpensive option. And I feel like if I'm a college student and I have bills to pay, like if I can do it, every single person can do it. Like no one has an excuse.
Yeah, no, I feel that. It's an interesting, I find it, for me, it kind of started around COVID, obviously, where it was like completely removed. All like we fled to LA with like a suitcase being like, we'll be here for 2 weeks. And then it was 3 months. You know, I live in New York, and just living out of a suitcase for 3 months, I was like, I don't need all of this stuff. Like these, so many things that I spent money on, I'd be like, oh, I got my paycheck, I'm going to go and like buy these shoes. You know, but I guess that's where you have to balance it out as well, and being like, okay, now, you know, I try and also I'm like, it's a juggling thing. But I'll let you go, but I have one question for you. Were you involved in the Donald Trump rally fiasco?
That's so genius. I did see the woman's video, but I was too late. I would have gotten my followers on it. Trust me, I wish.
Well, I'm sure there's more opportunities. I'm seeing another one going around that has to do with like reserving merch or something.
And there's a really good one. If you go on his website and you click on the ads, it costs them dollars. Their little ad dollars.
But then are they gonna like spam you with Trump ads because they're gonna think that you actually care?
No, you click on if you go on the website, you click on the ads on their page.
Yeah, but then I'm saying
shoes or something like that. I think you would get more information about maybe shoes in the future than
okay.
Trump information, but I think it's worth it.
Okay, so ways to fuck with Trump. That's one of them. Go to the website.
Cost him his little ad dollars.
Cost him those ad dollars. Yeah, I have faith that the technology generation is gonna bombard these old farts in office who probably have like literally old computers that can't handle all of these spam accounts.
They do, and I wish they. No, wait. Maybe I'm not even going to tell them that some of the people my age can't know different ways to mess with their computers. Like they don't even know.
Well, what about Anonymous?
Okay, yeah, Anonymous. That's true. Anonymous has been doing the work, but it's like, I was reading some of the hacks that they were doing on all of our government websites and stuff like that. And when you look at it, it's like our government websites and all of these structures that they have to keep the government, I guess, together are so old. The kind of attack that Anonymous did on like a lot of these NYPD on all these PD websites, so all these different police departments, were just like DOS attacks where they like bombard their servers with traffic. So basically the problem that they have is like traffic overload. I don't even think my website has that problem. Like it's never crashed. So I'm just like, you guys are so unprotected against us.
Yeah, that's what I was, when the like Minneapolis PD started happening, I was like talking to my little brother about it and like about Anonymous, and because I've learned about DOSing and DDoSing and like all of that stuff. It's crazy how, but I loved it. I was like, this is so great. Like, you know, those fucking assholes. So what would you say are the best ways to help then? I guess just go, if you're listening, please go check out Alexis's website. It's really fucking awesome. And there are, as she said, so many different things that you can learn and watch and listen to and donate. And it's all.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple things that you can do on different levels. If you're just a regular citizen, I would say the best you can do is put your money where your mouth is. Donate to Black organizations, donate to Black organizers, support Black business. Money talks. Money is access. Money is everything. So donate to these organizations that are often not making nearly as much as
Yeah.
so donate. If you are in any position of power, so if you run a company or if you are in a government seat or any place of power, you need to do the work. If you're saying that you support Black lives, I saw everyone's black squares, all these company black squares. If you are posting your little black square and you're saying that you support Black lives, you need to go out and start reaching out to these Black organizers and having conversations around how to actually make your company accepting and offering resources and tools and donating correctly and properly to the Black community. So you cannot say that you support Black folks with one, without doing the work, and two, doing the work without centering Black voices or having some sort of association with people that are advocating for the Black community. You need Black people if you're going to do any sort of Black advocation. So talk to Black people. I a good advice for everyone, but especially those people in power who have a lot of dollars and don't know what to do with them. Talk to those Black organizers.
Yeah, great. I'm very helpful. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
It was really nice to speak to you, and keep going. You're doing God's work over there. It's so important, though. It really is. It makes it makes such a difference to have that all laid out, and it's so helpful. It's so helpful. So
Thank you.
yeah, so thank you so much. It was so nice to speak with you, and hopefully we can keep in touch. Actually, I'm going to email you something that I was thinking about while we were having this conversation, but you know, if there's anything I can do to help or however it is, please, I'm always here. So feel free to send me whatever the hell you want.
100%. Thank you so much for asking me to do this and like giving me a platform. It like means the world.
Oh, amazing. And so what is your Instagram handle, by the way, so I can say everybody go follow? It's not unique. What is it? It's
Alexis Denise W. So AlexisDenisW.
okay. Great. Well, go and follow her. Not only is she smart, she is beautiful. I makes great TikToks and is so cute. So not that that's everything. It's not, but you know what I mean. Doesn't hurt. Okay. Thank you so much. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Be sure to share, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at I'm Over It Podcast or me at Atlanta Bean. I've also launched a Patreon if you really, really love I'm Over It. So head over to www.patreon.com/I'm Over It. Until next time.